guys, welcome to today's video. My name is Brittany and I'm trying out a little bit of a new audio situation, so we'll see how that goes. It is quite late in the evening. I have a cup of tea and we're gonna have like just a cozy, I want to do like a little cozy book review. There are 3 books that I want to talk to you about today that are romance books that I feel are based in reality. And I want to speak towards that statement. For me personally, I think I would classify myself as a new reader. I have not been reading since, the age of 8 and couldn't ever put a book down. That's not my testimony. But as a new reader, learning about what books I like and kind of navigating that realm of understanding what books I like, what books I don't like, I realized that in terms of romance specifically, I'm having a very hard time reading romance books that feel unauthentic. Not necessarily, I guess unauthentic is a stretch. They feel as though they're these perfect curated stories that don't have much depth to them. They're just like fun kiki stories. And I think that there's a time and a place for those books. But if you're talking about, for me, romance books that hit 4 or 5 stars, crazy enough, there needs to be like a level of realism, which kind of equals in my brain pain of some sorts, not necessarily like overtly like somebody like physical abuse or you got ran over by a car, not anything like that, but these characters need to be fully developed. And as a person who lives in reality, knowing that life is not perfect, it's not seamless every single day, it's not this wonderful blissful day where the weather is perfect or everything turns out or happens exactly as it's supposed to. When I'm reading books, I really want to read books that feel like they're based in something real, that this is a real love story that could actually happen. I realized that that definition of that type of genre of reading is called contemporary romance. However, after going back and looking at some of the books that I've read that are technically in the contemporary romance genre, some of them don't feel, they're still not like exactly what I want. I don't know how to explain that in like a more like in a nuanced term of like a title, but they're not what I want. Not in a bad way, but they're always usually land around 3 stars for me. I want depth. I want to feel like, oh my goodness, my heart is hurting and I'm happy for these characters because they're falling in love, but also that they're dealing with like real issues. Anyway, that was my long tangent of talking about these 3 books. Over the past year, these are 3 romance books that I've read that I feel like are based in reality, and I think some of the majority of them are pretty popular, but I'm going to give you like my book review, give you a little bit of a tidbit on what the book is about, and then basically share my unsolicited opinions. I'm going to start with this middle one actually first. And the first one is Fast by Millie Belazar. This book. First off, I feel like if you haven't read it, go and read it. 2, I feel I want to read this again. And 3, this is like a 5-star read for me, especially as like a new reader. This is like one of the first books in terms of like really getting into reading that I read, and it's a 5-star read, and it's not pretty. This book is not pretty. It's not a cutesy love story. It is a friends to lovers story, but there's so much surrounding that relationship growing and being built that it is just overwhelming. Like, this book felt overwhelming. It felt suffocating. It felt at times debilitating, not just for, like, you felt debilitated for the character. Her name is Caprice. She's the main character, and in the first 2 parts of this book, she's going through something and she has very limited control over the outcomes of it. She doesn't have control of it, and she's just having to endure. And her endurance, because she's an adolescent when the book starts, her and her childhood trying to deal with these very real heartbreaking things are surrounded by her coping with different mechanisms and developing like OCD. And those are like some of the nuances. And then we have like this love story, which is kind of this silver lining in this whole story, but just because it is a beautiful and authentic love does not mean that it's not disruptive and at times could not be harmful to both parties involved. So yes, but to give a quick synopsis of this book, we have Caprice Lattimore. She has moved in with her grandmother. She's, I believe, at the age of 8. She's 8 years old, and there's some things that have happened. There's some things that occur in that household, and I would definitely check out the trigger warnings for this book. But things happen in that household, and they were jumped to when she is 16, I believe. Back when she's 8, she meets a boy named Sean. Sean lives in her neighborhood, and he kind of starts having this liking for her, and they become friends, and they walk to school every day, and it's like this very heartfelt moment. That's at 8 years old. And then we have, basically, she is jumped until she's 16, I believe, and she's still kind of dealing with the aftermath and the effects of the trauma because she's still in the household with her grandmother. And then the third part is her jumping to like many years, I think it's like 20 years ahead, to when she is like in her 30s, and she's trying to heal from these experiences, heal from her childhood, and she and Sean kind of like meet up again. And that is what this book is about, and I want to read the book again now. But yes, hopefully it was not too much. I try to like stay away from as many spoilers because I want you to read the book. I want you to read the book. Anyway, the second book I want to talk to you guys about is 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. This is another book that I feel like it's a romance book, but it's based in what I feel is reality. Technically, I guess it's based in New York, technically, but they're these real characters. We're following Eva and Shane. They have known each other for quite some time. They met for 2 weeks when they were both seniors in high school. And after those 2 weeks of having this really close friendship and building this rapport, and honestly, basically trauma bonding, essentially, Shane disappears. And they both have to go on with their life. And then we're kind of jumped into when they're 30. They're they're in their 30s. They are both well-renowned and very established authors in their own respective fields, and they kind of have this situation where they're like pushed back together again, like they see each other. And it's one of those moments where like they are back in the same room together and the air just feels like it got sucked out of the room because they're both not intending, like they both don't have any intentions of actually like seeing each other, or they didn't think they were going to see each other. And we're having this moment of them reconciling, and also specifically Eva trying to figure out what happened. Shane, like, we were together for 2 weeks, not together in terms of romantically, they were just like friends, like really good close friends. There was a romantic side to it, but their relationship wasn't established. They were just very much two people who were trying to support each other the best way. What, they were like 17 18 year olds can, in a very environment that they didn't have any other support. Eva's mom was pretty much absent for her childhood, even though she had, like, I think, the best intentions. Shane grew up in a foster care where nobody cared about his comings or goings. Nobody cared about him, essentially. And they meet and they spark this friendship, and then it turns into romance, and this happens, and it's spiraling, and there's so many things that are happening within these 2 weeks, and then it just ends. And so in the book, we are being, like, Tia Williams does a really good job of, we're jumping perspectives. So we hear Shane's perspective, we hear Eva's perspective, but we're also going back from, in their perspective, we're also getting their perspective from current events that are actually happening, as well as past events. And we're just jumping characters. There's just one chapter where I believe we hear from this perspective of Eva's daughter, and like what she has going on. And so it's just going back and forth. And the book is them honestly trying to figure out, one, what happened back several years later, several years ago, when they were like together and they were madly in love for basically 2 weeks. And then two, is it possible with all of the stuff that we individually have going on currently, are we able to move forward? I think this book talks about disability to a certain extent, and disability in terms of having a disability that isn't seen, right? And how do you navigate a disability that isn't seen, right? You're not like when you're walking down the street, people don't automatically know that you have a disability, even though your disability is very much real. And we're also dealing with like abuse, like substance abuse in this book. So those are some of the themes that are talked about in this book, and I think this is a really good book. I would definitely recommend, and it feels like a romance book, but it's based in what I feel like reality and imperfect characters and imperfect people trying to see, like, not they've fallen in love, like that's the easy part, but in order can they maintain this and maintain, specifically from one person, maintain a relationship and be accountable towards that and show up for that. So that is that book, 7 Days in June. I will go check it out. The last book that I want to talk to you guys about in terms of a book based in reality is The Heart Principle. The Heart Principle by Helen Hong. I just finished this book recently, like a couple of days ago, and I knew that I liked this book because there's these parts in the book. I've already remembered the page numbers already, don't worry about it, that I will literally continuously go back to and read over again. I probably, yeah, I'm going to read over it. I'm going to read over them because they're just that good. I actually picked up this book with you guys several videos ago. Several videos ago, and it was just, I went to Books A Million and I saw they were having a sale. I picked up a random book and I thought that it was going to be one of those like just frou-frou, like whatever reads, like everything's beautiful, everything's sunshine and daisies, and I was coming out of a reading slump, so I was like, I just need something that's like easy. And I honestly thought that this book was delusional. I actually told my mother that. I told my mother that because when I read what the book was about, I said, oh yeah, like this is delusional. This is delusional. No, not really. Not really. Misconception. So, let me tell you a quick synopsis about the book, and then I'm going to tell you what I enjoyed about this book. In general terms, we have a well-renowned violinist named Anna Sun, and she is living life. She is getting through life. She is just getting through day by day in a way of trying to contort and form herself into these very much like cookie cutter ideas of the person who she's supposed to be. And she has a boyfriend. Her boyfriend's name is Julian. They have been together for a long time. And after one date, they like going on a date, and he tells her that, you're the person I want to be with, I think, and I want to get married to you maybe, and you're amazing. However, I think that we're going to open up our relationship just so that I can go out here and just see what else is out there, you know? And once I see what else is out there, after that, if I, like, basically, if I want to, like, we can close the relationship again. And Anna in this relationship has been very much in this, she's pacified a lot of his behavior, and she's like, what? But she doesn't agree to it. She doesn't disagree to it. She just says, what? Kind of is the vibe. And the kicker for me in all of this is that at the end of the conversation, her boyfriend Julian states, well, like, I know that she won't sleep with anybody else like during this time, so I'm not really worried about it. I just basically need a infinite hall pass so I can just go and, sleep with other people. So, long story short, Anna's just like, okay, if you're gonna be in an open relationship, if we're in an open relationship and you're gonna do whatever you wanna do, I'm going to go and do whatever I want to do, and I'm going to find somebody to have a one night stand with and then just move on, just so that I can not feel like I'm just sitting at home and you out here doing whatever you want to do. So she goes on a dating app and she meets a man named Quan. Quan is a tattooed motorcyclist. He has like this bald head, and there's like this allure to him. And she's just like, okay, but there's this allure to him. However, she's under the pretense and the understanding that he is so not acceptable in terms of my world, in terms of like the life I live, and my parents wouldn't accept him, so I don't have to worry about him. He's just gonna be a fun time, and then we move on. They attempt to have a one night stand, and it doesn't work. And so like, okay, we'll try again another day. And so they try again another day. And so for pretty much like a month, they are continuously trying to have like this one night stand that keeps on messing up, keeps on failing, keeps on not going through. And but they keep on spending time together. They keep on watching documentaries together. And so we're having that as an aspect. And then Anna has an issue and things occur in her life that kind of like change her world, change her responsibilities, and she's in this place where she has to engage more in with her family. And Quan is there, like basically kind of trying to support her throughout this process. Quan also has things going on. He has a clothing brand that he's trying to grow and build, and so we get that aspect of it. And we have all of these things happening, and that's the love story. But at the end of the day, also still remember, Anna's technically still in a relationship. She's just in an open relationship by like definition, but it's not really a relationship because they literally don't eat. Like even when they're in an open relationship, they do not talk to each other. Like the time that they're in their like openness, they don't talk to each other. Like they don't hang out, they don't talk to each other. There's no relationship. Like y'all really kind of just took a break. Is really kind of what happened. The reason why I like this book, and I'm trying so hard not to spoil anything, but the reason why I enjoyed this book is that this book showcased a certain level of vulnerability on not just like Anna's part, but also on Kwan's part, where like being vulnerable, I think in a lot of books, it's very easy to like write books where the woman is being like vulnerable, or they have like, oh, they have these big issues or these big problems, and then like the man is just supposed to like sweep in and like save the day and make everything okay. But there's these points where Kwan in the book has these there's multiple parts in the book where he has to be vulnerable, and he has been vulnerable in times where he was helped and cared. Like, okay, how do I say this? There are points in the book where Quan has shown vulnerability, where there was support, like Anna provided support. There are other parts in the book where he has shown vulnerability or needed support, and he wasn't given that support in that time. And it's just very nice to see where both characters, both people in this book are having to be like vulnerable in terms of like mentally, emotionally, like in so many different ways. And so I feel like this book had a little bit more depth to it. It talked about like the nuances of life. That's all I'm gonna say. So these are the three books, romance books, that I feel like are actually based in reality that I've read recently, that I actually have the physical copies for, and I wanted to share them with you. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video and listening to me ramble. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I would definitely recommend all of these books. All of these books I have either given 4 or 5 stars, so they're definitely books that I would definitely recommend. But that is all for today. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video, and guess what? Yeah, I'll see you next time.